Outcomes and next steps. So outcomes following the Viva itself and what we do after the Viva. So let's look at the official policy here. And I'm sorry to say that a lot of this is policy, but it's important to know. So the steps following your oral examination are as follows. First, your examiners complete a joint report and make a recommendation which is sent to your degree committee. Your degree committee consider the reports at their next available meeting. The degree committee forwards their recommendation to the Board of Graduate Studies. The Board of Graduate Studies considers the recommendation at the next available meeting and emails the student to confirm the results. Now that's quite different to how most universities in the UK conduct the Viva. These universities, most universities, will usually inform the student immediately following the Viva. So the student's asked to leave for about 10-15 minutes, and then you're invited back in and you're told how you've done and what the result is. In Cambridge, technically, that's not supposed to happen. The recommendation has to go, as you've seen, to the degree committee, and then has to be approved by the Board of Graduate Studies, and then the email is sent to the student, the email confirming the outcome. So potentially you're going to have to wait a little while until you really know the outcome, which I understand could be quite nerve-wracking and a horrendous thing to go through. Alas, that's how it is. So prepare yourself for that. Possible outcomes. Okay, so the outcome that we would all like to have, though it is perhaps the rarest, is unconditional approval. So that means you've passed, no changes necessary, it is as it is, job done. Quite a small percentage of students actually achieve this, it's not the standard. Following that, we have conditional approval. So that's subject to submission of a hardbound copy for the library or subject to minor or major corrections. So the changes could really just concern typos, some grammatical mistakes, some spelling mistakes, or it could be a bit more substantive and affect the content. Maybe you need to add or take away a paragraph here or there, or a reference here or there, that sort of thing. I should say that's the more standard, common outcome. So if you achieve conditional approval, that's very good. It's good. It shouldn't be seen as a slight of any sort. That's a very good outcome. Following that, we have revision and resubmission of the work for a fresh examination. So that's probably because that will be asked for of you because there's been an issue that can't be addressed simply by making some revisions here and there. Revisions will be required, but probably a fair few, and to an extent that would necessitate further discussion, that is to say, an additional examination. Beyond that, we have revision and resubmission of the work for a fresh examination or acceptance of an MSc or MLit without further revision. Okay. Pleased to say that these last two are incredibly rare. The student is not allowed to revise the thesis, but offered an MSc, an MLit, without further revision or examination. And finally, although I'm pleased to say this is quite rare, there's outright failure. But we're not counting on that. It's particularly rare. In terms of making those corrections, the Board of Graduate Studies may confirm that you need to make corrections for your dissertation before full approval can be granted for your degree. So in other words, they'll come back to you and say you need to make these revisions first, and then we will confirm the degree. As said, the decision will be emailed to you by the student registry within 2 days of the Board of Graduate Studies meeting. So I mentioned that email earlier. If you've been told directly by your examiners or degree committee that you need to undertake corrections, you will need to follow their instructions and follow them carefully. And if something is ambiguous or you're not sure, go back and ask. But do not deviate from the instructions. This is something you want to follow to the letter. There are some additional policy-related stuff that you should probably be aware of. Now, I've provided a link to all the stuff you need to be aware of policy-wise below this video. I would highly recommend clicking the link, opening up the page and reading through it. You will see pretty much what I've just discussed verbatim, but some additional things too that is quite important to be aware of. Now, deadlines for corrections are quite important because you will need to plan your time accordingly depending on what kind of corrections you're given. So if the corrections are deemed minor, so they're of the minor classification, you will have 3 months in which to submit the corrections. 3 months. And you need to provide a list of those corrections to your examiners. Now, check your reports to see if corrections need to go to the internal and external examiner or just one of them, because it does vary. So you need to be aware of that. And the 3-month deadline, to be clear, begins from the date of the Board of Graduate Studies meeting. So count on 3 months from the date of the meeting to work out the due date for corrections, if indeed you know the date of that meeting. In terms of major corrections, it's more or less the same thing, but you're given 6 months instead of 3. So you still need to check whether the list of corrections needs to go to both examiners or one. And indeed, you will be given 6 months from the date of the Board of Graduate Studies meeting. So same principle as minor corrections, just 6 months instead of 3. Now, do I need to go through another Board of Graduate Studies meeting? Well, once you've received a conditional approval subject to corrections from the Board of Graduate Studies, you do not need to be considered at a further Board of Graduate Studies meeting. So that's the boring policy stuff out of the way, but important policy stuff nevertheless.